Welcome to the SCV Law Life Podcast. I'm Mason Rashtian. Each week I sit down with people in the legal world and beyond to talk about the strategies that are actually working for them in law, in life, and everything in between. Real conversations, real lessons, and ideas you can actually use. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the SCV Law Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mason Rashtian, and today I'm joined by attorney Jack LaPedis. Jack has more than 28 years of civil litigation experience and focuses his practice on real estate litigation, small business disputes, and the defense of financial elder abuse claims. Throughout his career, he's represented buyers and sellers, real estate professionals, homeowners, contractors, HOAs, and small business owners in a wide range of complex legal disputes, from property line easement issues to business partner conflicts and contract litigation. Jack is a graduate of the Pepperdine University School of Law, where he served on the moot court board, and he also holds a degree in psychology from UC Irvine. Beyond the law practice, he's a published computer hardware reviewer, a self-proclaimed Apple fan, and a lifelong supporter of the San Francisco 49ers, Giants, and Warriors. And today we're not going to hold that against them. So, Jack, welcome to the SCV Law Life Podcast. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. In my defense, I am a LA Kings and LA Galaxy fan. So there's that.
Okay, well, good. Is it because Northern California doesn't have soccer and hockey teams, or do they? I don't follow.
Okay. So let's jump right into it. I grew up in the Bay Area, and my family has been 49er fans since their inception in 1946. And then, of course, I was a Giants fan and a Warriors fan. I went to Rick Barry basketball camp when I was 11 years old. I have an photograph of him behind me where you can't see it. But when I was in college, that's when Wayne Gretzky got traded to the Kings. And at the time, the Sharks did not exist in San Jose. So I did not have a hockey team growing up except for the San Francisco Shamrocks, which didn't exist anymore. They were a minor league hockey team that played at the Cow Palace. So I became a Kings fan around the time that Gretzky got traded to the Kings, and that just sort of carried through. And there were the San Jose Earthquakes of soccer, but I wasn't much of a soccer fan growing up. I became more of a soccer fan as I had kids and had to spend every Saturday at AYSO soccer.
Okay. Man, all I know is in California, having a name Earthquakes is scary.
In Carolina, they have the Hurricanes. I mean,
Well, that's true. I didn't think about that.
Naming the Earthquakes was not that big of a deal until 89.
I still remember when Gretzky got traded. Me and my friend were in Yosemite when that happened. And we were in Curry Village, and we saw a newspaper and go, whoa. And I'm not a hockey fan, but even that caught my attention. So tell us more about what you do aside from the fan of the teams. And I know you told me a story about you guys as a kid were invited to visit the stadium, I believe. You're talking about
my dad going to training camp?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's a whole nother story. Let's get my introduction out of the way, and then we can get into it.
Sure.
You stole some of my thunder, but I'm going to give you my regular introduction. So again, I'm Jack LaPedis. I'm a real estate and business dispute attorney. I help people who are buying and selling mostly residential real estate, and there's a problem with the transaction. I help real estate professionals who are having issues with their clients or with other real estate professionals. I help with issues having to do with contractors and home inspectors, whether it be for the homeowner or the professional. And a lot of my cases are neighbor disputes, shared trees, shared driveways, shared fences, property line issues, easements, noise complaints. And yes, I've had 3 cases involving chainsaws. I also help small businesses with contract and vendor disputes, co-owner and partner disputes, and ADA claims. And I have a small part of my practice where I represent people who have been wrongly accused of financial elder abuse. The bio that you were working from is a little bit old. I actually just celebrated my 30th year as an attorney, and I've spent almost all that time, I would say, as a litigator and dispute attorney, as opposed to a transactional attorney.
Got it. You know where I got this bio from? From Tens Esquire. So,
I need to update it.
Yes. Yes.
I actually just redid my website. Almost all the text in my website is completely new and updated. And now instead of saying 28 years, it says more than 30 years. So I can leave that for a little while.
Perfect. So actually, I always ask my client and my my guests. I'm so used to saying clients as attorneys. My guests about their how to get a hold of you. So you just talked about your website. What's your website?
The website is lapedislaw.com, LAPEDISLAW.com. And there's a way to get a hold of me through a contact sheet there. Because of various issues, I don't have my email address or my phone number on my website. I know people are like, that's terrible SEO. But because of various issues, I found it works better just to have a contact sheet.
Got it. So tell us more about some of these cases that you handle. Do you take a particular side, like the plaintiffs versus the defendant, or do you handle either side?
For the neighbor disputes, I handle either side. One of the things that I say about the cases that I take, and this applies to all the cases I take, is I try not to represent the bad guy. And so if I sit down and I'm talking with a potential client about a problem they're having with their neighbor, I've been doing this long enough that when they describe what the situation is and they describe what they want done, I can kind of tell who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. And I'm using that. There's very good people who have misperceptions about what they can and can't do with their property line or the easement or whatever. But I try to represent the side that I believe is more legally correct. So sometimes that's the plaintiff and sometimes that's the defendant. And sometimes it's either side could be the plaintiff or the defendant. And it's just a matter for me of strategy. I've had cases where I've told the client, I said, don't do anything. There's nothing to do. And if they want to sue you, let them sue you. And then there's other situations where it's like, okay, we need to write a letter, we need to make a deadline, and if they don't meet that deadline, then we need to sue them. I always try to avoid the lawsuit part of it, but to answer your question, I represent both sides.
Okay. Do the crux of these cases come from animosity because of, I know there could be some tree overlying issues, there could be noise complaints. What do you see is the most complaints that you handle from neighbors?
Most of my cases seem to involve, recently, let's put it this way. Recently, they mostly involve a developer who buys a piece of property that has been owned by someone for many years. So the neighbors' kids grew up together. And the developer comes in, and developers love new fences. And so the developer gets a survey because they're going to put up a new fence, and they find out where the current fence is not where the property line is. As I say, in the west side of LA, the fences are merely suggestions of where the property line might be. The fences do not delineate the property line. And so sometimes you literally get a developer who will tear down the existing fence, and they're like, well, my property line's 2 feet over that way. I'm going to build the fence over there. Well, that's in the middle of the neighbor's driveway. And so you have these situations where you have a developer buy a piece of property and they don't have any history with the neighbor. And actually, I've had this conversation with judges a number of times where they're talking about, oh, well, this is a neighbor dispute. And I said, well, actually, Your Honor, what you have is someone who bought the property next door who's going to develop it and sell it. They're not a neighbor. They're just the person who owns the property next door. And sometimes that resonates with judges. Sometimes it doesn't. So I call them neighbor disputes, but it's really a homeowner versus a developer. And, I tell people all the time, when the case is over, I get to go home to my house where I have great relationships with my neighbors. You have to live with this person, or you have to live with where the fence ends up, or you have to live with, whether or not there's an easement or all that sort of thing. And when you're dealing with two neighbors who are going to be there, that's one thing. When you're dealing with a developer who's not going to be there, that changes my approach on the case.
Okay. I know in the Valley, you got a lot of older homes, and sometimes developers will come in, tear down a place and put this big monstrosity instead. Do you ever get complaints from quote unquote neighbors about developers who are doing that?
Well, unfortunately, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is, as long as they have the proper permits and the proper setbacks and all that, you can build a 2-story house in a 1-story neighborhood. In fact, they have that going on in my neighborhood. We've had a lot of construction on our street, not just our neighborhood, but in the last 5-10 years. And 2 of the 3 houses they built on my street they built 2-story houses because they can, and because they can get a bigger house on a smaller piece of property. So someone saying, well, they're building a 2-story house next to my 1-story house, there's really, unfortunately, not a ton you can do about it. You have to find other reasons to try and limit them.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about 2-story. I was thinking about somebody like building a apartment complex or something like obnoxious. But
yeah, I mean, that comes down to zoning and permitting and things like that.
Okay. So aside from that, you work on business dispute cases. Tell me about some.
Yeah, a lot of my business dispute cases are small business, closely held divorces, essentially. Where I've had a lot of brother and sister cases over the last 5 years, where they own a business that was started by the parents, and now one of them wants out, or one of them wants the other one out. So, most of my small business cases are what you would call mom and pop kind of organizations.
Is it litigation only, or do you if there's a partnership, you help them dissolve it?
So most of my practice is dispute and litigation focused. There are non-litigation aspects, what some would call transactional aspects, that kind of touch on that, where maybe part of the resolution is writing up some sort of dissolution. There are times where I've handled that sort of thing. It's really kind of a settlement agreement, which a lot of litigators handle anyway. Mm-hmm. And I have we're both in a lawyer networking group, and we have a lot of really good business transaction attorneys that I have gone to for either to enlist them to write up documents or to assist me with what I'm doing. So if I feel that it's in my wheelhouse, I will do things like that, but it's definitely not the focus of my practice.
So when in a dispute, somebody call you for help in the very beginning, when they try to do something on their own?
Well, I would love it if the moment they feel there's a dispute, they give me a call. They feel like there's something going on with the neighbor, and it's very early on, and they've had the conversation with the neighbor. They've gone over and they said, hey, the fence is falling over and we need to replace it. Or, hey, I see your surveyor's putting down some spikes, and what's the plan here? And they have that conversation, and it's not a satisfactory result. That's the best time to bring a lawyer like me in to evaluate the situation and see if there is a next step that needs to be taken with the lawyer. I have a lot of situations. I have a lot of conversations with potential clients who they call me and I go, you're 4 steps away from hiring me. There's 3 other steps you need to take. And just generally speaking, they would be this, and this. If you go through these steps and it hasn't resolved, then call me back. I have that a lot. And I give away a lot of business, and I'm thankful. A lot of times I never hear from them again. And I don't know if that means they hired a different lawyer or if one of those 3 steps resolved the matter. I hope it's the latter, and that I've helped a couple neighbors get out of a dispute without them having to bring me in.
See, that's nice to hear, because there's a lot of attorneys out there who could do what you do, but instead they force clients to sign up with them, take their money, stuff they could do already by themselves.
Right.
Yeah, so,
look, most of my clients, the vast majority of my clients, especially the neighbor disputes, are just homeowners, right? And I'm a homeowner. And I don't have a line in my homeowner's budget, give a lawyer thousands of dollars this year. No homeowner has that, right? And I spend some of my time trying to help clients find insurance. That's another reason why I don't rush out and tell my clients to sue the other side, because if the other side sues them, sometimes homeowners insurance can kick in. Title insurance is a big one that sometimes kicks in. And sometimes I still get hired. I'm just paid by the insurance company and not by the homeowner. So if I can make it so that someone doesn't have to hire me, that's a homeowner that I've saved from having to spend thousands of dollars. And does it cost me business? Absolutely. But like I said, I don't represent the bad guy. If I were on to represent the bad guy, I'd have a lot more business too. But that's just not the practice I want to have. And that's the reason I opened my own practice almost 9 years ago, was to not have to represent bad guys, not have to overbill people because there's someone breathing down my neck, and to really try and, I jokingly say I want to use my powers for good and not evil.
That's nice to hear, especially these days. What's going on with our business? You heard me bitch about billboard attorneys and stuff like that. So hell. Okay, so you also do some financial elder abuse claim defense work. Tell me about those.
Yeah, so it's interesting. This all started by accident. So I worked at a law firm where I represented real estate professionals, agents, brokers, brokerages, that sort of thing. And I was involved in a case which had to do with an elderly gentleman, and his house got sold at his behest, but with the assistance of other people, including a real estate agent who I represented. And in that case, one of the defendants, the two adult sons, had sued a bunch of people. One of the defendants was like this guy's caregiver for 10 years, who really cared about this man. She wasn't my client, but I could see, there's no insurance for that sort of thing. And so she had a lawyer who was doing the bare minimum because she could barely pay him. And she did nothing wrong. And I remember that stuck in my head. And then when I opened my own office, it just so happened I was talking with someone and they knew of a caregiver who was being sued. And I reached out to her, which I rarely do. I rarely reach out to people in that way because, there really isn't, if you go searching, there aren't really people who advertise, I represent people who've been sued for financial elder abuse. And I took on that case. And I was able to get her out of the case. She had to pay me a bit, but she didn't have to pay anybody else. I said, you know what? I'm just going to kind of put it out there that if they're caregivers or family members who really did nothing wrong, they just get caught up in the wave of, I literally had a greedy nephew from New York who I pictured him twirling his mustache, who, came in and said that my client, caregiver for 15 years, had stolen from his auntie that he never sees. So, I don't have a ton of those cases. I actually don't have any of those right now. I think the most I've ever had at one time is 2 of them at one time. But it's just like, I don't think there's anyone else who does that. And, obviously I have to get paid, but I try and do only what needs to be done. I don't overbill in those cases. And, my favorite case is a caregiver who got put into someone's will, totally legitimate. Actually, she got put into the woman's will without the knowledge of my client. The lady did it through her lawyer. My client had no idea. There was no evidence that my client had any influence over this woman at the time she did. She did it 10 years before the case started. And we went and we had a big mediation with a bunch of parties. And I love to say my client got sued, and in the end, she got $1 million. Because the woman had passed away, and in the will, she got $1 million. So,
yeah, but you're right though. I don't know anybody else who does that. That part of litigation. I know a lot of attorneys have done this for 30 years. You were the only person I've came across with during that time that has those cases. It's nice to hear that somebody's out there helping out.
Yeah, there's plenty of people who will sue caregivers.
Oh yeah,
I don't know of any others that will defend them.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I want to ask you about the chainsaw, obviously, but let me just tell everybody again how to get a hold of you.
So my website is lapedislaw.com, LAPEDISLAW.com.
Okay. So now, I have to find out about the chainsaw cases. Is it
Well,
more than
okay,
one?
there were three. There's currently one, and I can't talk about that one that's still
Understood.
going on. But people ask me all the time about trees hanging over their property and whether they can do anything about it. And the short answer is yes. The longer answer is you can trim a tree back to the property line as long as it won't hurt the tree. And the best way to figure that out is have an arborist come in and check out the tree, even if it's just like looking over the fence. A lot of it's visual anyway. So the arborist can get up on a step stool and look at the condition of the tree. Though I'm not going to speak for an arborist. They may completely disagree with me, but in my experience, they can do it visually. And I had a case where the neighbor didn't do that and basically took a chainsaw, went to the property line and just cut all the way up 20, 30 feet and killed the tree and made the tree unbalanced. And of course, if you cut on one side, it's the other side that gets heavier, or that becomes the heavy side. And so there was a risk of the tree falling on my client's house. And so my client had to deal with the tree, and then I got involved with getting the tree replaced and a little bit of damages and things like that. But I've had cases where the chainsaw was used on a fence and a chainsaw that was used on a gate.
Ooh. Anybody go after a neighbor with a chainsaw?
Luckily, I don't have any chainsaw versus people cases.
Okay.
That's a different area of law. That's either you or a criminal. So,
Or both.
yeah.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, if somebody destroys a tree, is there like triple damages in some respects for that tree?
Yeah. Yes. You can get treble damages, and you call it triple, which is for the lay people. And us lawyers call it treble for whatever reason. Yes, you can get treble damages for certain things, and trees fall in that category.
Got it. I'm glad to say I've had two different neighbors whose tree, one of them was just destroying my front yard because it was a cotton tree. So it was like my place would be covered with stuff. When I asked if I can remove it, they said, yeah, go ahead. So we actually had somebody come in there and take it down. And there was another one on a different side, same kind of issue. So I'm glad I didn't have to call you, but I know who to call if I had that issue.
I had a situation where kitty corner behind me, a developer bought the property and was doing a bunch of work. And at that corner, I have a hedge on my side of a cinder block wall. And the hedge has been growing for the 19 years that I've been here. I think at that point in time, it was like 15 years. And it was tall and whatever. And we liked it because it was right next to the pool. And I come out one day and it's gone. The hedge is gone. It's like cut down to like 2 feet behind a 6-foot fence. So I have a camera out there. I take the camera, run back the footage. 2 workers from the developer's property hopped over the wall into our pool area, cut down the hedge, left all the stuff there, and hopped back over. And I'm like, boy, what dumb luck for this guy. He jumped over the fence and cut down the hedge of a real estate lawyer.
Yeah.
So I went over to the other street and got the phone number because, they all advertise this beautiful house is being built by this jerk. And we had a few, I was very calm about it. I think it's just, whatever. They're used to getting away with whatever they get away with. But we had a conversation and we were able to resolve it without litigation. And I actually made him do something for the elderly couple that lives next to us behind his property because I saw that they had done something similar over there. And there was a bunch of, anyway, we took care of it. But yeah, I mean, it's stuff you don't think people would ever, who would ever think to hop into the neighbor's backyard and cut down the hedge that's fully on their side of the cinder block wall? But it happened to me.
And to make it worse, they left the stuff there. They didn't even bother cleaning it up. That's rude.
Yeah, it was. And he's again not my neighbor, just the guy who owns the property of it.
Oh,
he couldn't care less.
That reminds me. So 4th of July is coming up, and we always get someone in our neighborhood who's not a direct neighbor of ours, but it's across the street. They shoot off fireworks, so they're not supposed to. Sometimes over our house, and it's loud. Never mind the fact it's a high fire hazard, and it's obnoxious. My poor dog, who's a 100-pound husky, is so scared. She runs upstairs and literally hides underneath tables.
Right.
Every year I have to yell at these guys not to do it, and I have to call the sheriff. Is that something that somebody could
So here's my recommendation. And I have it. I do this a lot also for noise complaints. Is tomorrow, go to your local sheriff's office or whatever. You said the sheriff, not the police, but go to the sheriff's office, ask for the watch commander or whatever they call it, and you say, look, every year on the 4th of July, he goes, I know you have bigger fish to fry. But I'm just telling you, this happens every year. The neighbors across the street shoot off fireworks, which of course is illegal, scare the heck out of our dogs. The fireworks go over my property, which is a fire hazard. I'm at the end of my rope. I don't want this to turn into anything bigger than just knock it off. Do you think that maybe you could send someone over tomorrow or the Friday and tell them, hey, we get complaints about you every year. If we get a complaint about you tomorrow, we're not coming with a conversation. We're coming with bracelets. Talk to the watch commander and see how they take something like that. Okay. So you can anticipate it. So I'm going to tie it into what happens in my practice, which is noise complaints. There are 2 places on the LAPD website where it says, if you have a noise problem with your neighbor, that's a violation of a city code, call us, okay? A lot of people call me and they say, we called the police, they came out, they talked to them, they came out, well, it's a civil matter. Okay. Their own website says it's not a civil matter, it's a criminal matter. It's a matter for the police to deal with. Specifically says it in 2 places on their website. So what I have advised people to do is print out those 2 pages from the website, go down to the police station, ask to speak to the watch commander, tell them what your issue is, and say, and by the way, your own website says your officers are supposed to deal with this. It's not a civil matter, and so, we would love for this to be dealt with in the proper way, as described on your own website in 2 different places. That sometimes gets a better response a week later if you have to call the police, because the watch commander during their briefing will sometimes bring it up. I've had people tell me that the officer that came out a week later said, oh yeah, our watch commander mentioned this at the briefing, that don't tell people it's a civil matter. Our website actually says it isn't, or something like that. I think that's more of an exception than a rule. I think a lot of the police officers, for whatever reason, their training is, if you don't hear something loud, just tell them it's a civil matter, and get it off of our plate.
Got it. Okay, cool. Thank you. I know you're an Apple fanboy. I have everything Apple except for my computer's a PC. But and I know you take Apple products, you told us before, to help refurbish them and give it to people. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So it literally started out as I like Apple stuff. I don't begrudge people who like Android or Windows. I've actually been a big Windows user for many years. I used to build Windows computers for other people. And as you mentioned, I used to write hardware reviews for computer websites, and those were PCs. So I've been on the other side, but I'm much, obviously into the Apple stuff. So what this started out as was literally I just kind of started collecting old Apple stuff. And I have a pretty good collection. I'm pretty happy with it. And so I would ask people, hey, if you have an old thing lying around, I'd love to have it. And then what happened was I started getting more than one of a particular kind. And I really didn't need more than one in my collection, especially if they're like have the same memory and the same size and everything like that. And so I wouldn't turn down anything, but I ended up with all these multiples. And then one day on Facebook, someone in a group posted, oh my God, my son's computer died and he has a paper due. And I had an old MacBook, not too old, but old enough. And I had already cleaned it up, whatever. And I offered it to her and she took it and she was thrilled. And thus was born now my main focus, which is I take anything Apple, okay, working, broken, cracked screens, old, new, parts, cables, monitors, anything with an Apple logo. Okay. It's funny. I'll say to people, anything Apple, and they'll come to me and say, do you take iPads? Yeah, by Apple. So I take all those things and I clean them up. If they need repair, some of the things I can repair myself. Some of the things luckily I have a business who does repairs for me for the cost of the parts only. They don't charge me labor. I clean them up and then I find families or individuals who need technology. Recently, I have a friend who's a locksmith, and he came to me and he said there was this family. It's a single mother and 3 preteens, and they had their place broken into, which is how he found out about it because he was replacing their locks, and they had everything stolen. And because of the generosity of people who had given me items, I was able to donate to them completely for free a complete desktop computer setup, 3 MacBooks, and 3 iPads. And so they're back on their feet technology-wise. And I joke, I'm a lawyer. How else am I going to get into heaven?
No, that's great. I mean, again, we don't do enough. I certainly don't. So I'm really glad to hear someone's out there watching for people. That's great.
Yeah. The only thing, I mean, most everything I can erase, even if it has a password on it, it erased everything. So I can't get to the data. I don't want the data anyway, but I erase everything. The only thing I can't do is log out of iCloud, which is different than erasing the item, especially iPhones. If someone wants to donate something, we got to get it logged out of iCloud, and then I can deal with the rest.
Okay. So we know what you do for business. We know that you help people on the side. What do you do for yourself? For fun, hobbies, to keep sanity in our crazy business? Tell us about that.
My family growing up, like I said, we went to 49er games. We had season tickets up until they moved out of Candlestick Park. So I had been going to sporting events since I was 6 years old. And that's something I carried over. And so we go to a lot of sporting events. We have season tickets to some football and basketball, and we go to hockey games and soccer games. And I kind of passed that on. My son is a rising senior at Indiana University studying to be a sports broadcaster. And he's actually spending the summer as the streaming voice of the Martinsville, Virginia Mustangs baseball team. So we're very much into going to sporting events. And my wife and I like going to country concerts, some of our favorite artists. And we've gone to Vegas and San Diego, and I think might be going up to the Bay Area for some concerts. So we like going to sporting events and going to concerts. And then the Apple stuff is also a hobby for me, fixing the products that people give me. Taking 3 broken MacBooks and turning them into one working MacBook is very satisfying. And so I spend time doing that as well.
And I know you said you used to review PCs.
Yeah. So back when, this is a long time ago, back when I was in law school and just became a baby lawyer, I had been very active on a website that focused on these small PCs. They're called small form factor. They're like the size of large shoeboxes. And I became friendly with the owner of the website, and we got to talking, and he found out, I build my own computers and stuff. And he started forwarding review units to me to write reviews for the website, and I did a few for some other websites. I did that for a number of years. Review entire systems and review chips and video cards and RAM and all those things that no one knows is in their magic box that makes things go.
I know nothing about this. My son can do them, but I know nothing about them whatsoever.
Well, what a lot of people don't know about me, couple things. When I was in the second grade, I was in a special program in my elementary school where we would go to the mainframe at the district office and learn programming. And then when I was in high school, way back in the day in 1984, I helped set up the first computer lab at my high school. And then I actually started college as a computer science major. So I kind of had that background.
So where did you go to high school?
I grew up in the Bay Area, so I went to a high school in San Francisco.
Okay, I was going to have you give a shout out to your high school if you wanted to, but
well,
depends if you like your high school or not.
This is gonna cause people running to Google to figure this out. The name of my high school is Lick Wilmerding. So if you know anything about the Bay Area, there's two famous people, famous businessmen. James Lick, who has a middle school named after him and a freeway named after him, and J.C. Wilmerding, who was a large businessman in the 1800s in San Francisco. And they had separate schools. They had a James Lick school and a Wilmerding school, and they merged to become Lick Wilmerding. And one of the features of Lick Wilmerding is it's a very highly rated college prep school, but it focuses on shops. And you have to take a certain number of shops. So I took jewelry shop, metal shop, wood shop. They also had auto shop. I took electric shop. You had to take, I think, 4 or 5. You had to take one every year and then one extra or something like that. So in addition to the academic rigors, you also learn how to work with your hands.
They don't have those shops anymore, do they?
Well, that's one of the great things about Lick Wilmerding. And it has expanded. When I went there were 300 kids total, 72 in my class. And now I think it's like 4 times that. Wow. They've built and added on. But I'm pretty sure the shop aspect of it is still alive and kicking. I think it's part of the charter or whatever they call it.
Yeah, I remember I took metal shop, I took electric shop, I took wood shop, and I actually made a sculpture, which is in my office, of an eagle attacking a snake that won first place in California. Print shop, and that's it. Yeah.
I have a metal thing that I made for my parents that is around here somewhere. I can't see it, but yeah, there's a few things. I made a pendant in jewelry shop for my mom. And I made a metal thing that was a toothpick holder or matchstick holder for my parents that was in our kitchen for many, many years. It was interesting. I mean, one of the things that convinced me that I didn't want to go into any of those industries because I wasn't very good at a lot of it, and some of the woodshop stuff scared the heck out of me. I'm left-handed, but I didn't want anyone to look at me and say, "Oh, hey, lefty." So,
got it. All right. So before we wrap up, let me ask you this question, which I often ask my guests. If you were to meet your 10-year-old Jack LaPedis today, based on what you know, what kind of advice would you give him?
It's funny. I've had this question before, and there's three answers. One is buy Apple stock and hold it. That's one.
Cheating.
That's cheating. Another one is, some academic kind of advice or whatever. But the third one, and because I'm kind of a science nerd when it comes to like time travel and Star Trek and that sort of thing, I would absolutely leave me alone, because I have a wife of 30 years and I have 2 children that I love very much. And if the butterfly effect would make it so that they wouldn't exist anymore. And I don't think I don't want to live in that world. So I think I would stay away from a 10-year-old me.
That is a great answer. I've never heard anybody give that answer. That's probably the perfect answer. All right.
You never know. I mean, there's a movie called The Butterfly Effect. I forget the name of the actor. It'll come to me as soon as we hang up here. But it shows that, every little change, you don't know the ripple effect. And if you know anything about Star Trek, especially Star Trek Voyager, there was a whole 2-part thing about time travel and stuff that you just never, you change one little thing, one little thread, and you just, maybe that bus doesn't miss you when you're 12 years old.
Yeah. No, I'm a Trekkie, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I think the actor played in the 70s show. Wasn't that the guy who married?
Yeah. Ashton Kutcher.
Ashton Kutcher. That's it.
Yeah. I knew his last name started with a K, and I was working from there. But yeah, a lot of people think it's a bad movie. I think it's a very interesting movie. Especially the director's cut has a different ending. I'm not going to spoil it.
Oh, I never watched that one. I do need to go back to watch the new director's cut for the X-Files movie. I know that has a new director's version. I haven't seen that one
I hadn't
yet.
heard of that.
Yeah, that one just came out. All right. Well, before we let you go, website again is
LaPedislaw.com, LaPedislaw.com.
All right, Jack.
And did I mention I just redid it? Yeah, I did mention that. I literally last Monday relaunched my website.
Well, thank you again for so much for being a guest on our show, and everybody who's watching and listening. Jack knows his stuff that not a lot of people do, and he's a really good guy. If you have any questions, if you have any issues that you need help with, whether it's your neighbor, whether business, please give him a call. He'll be more than happy to help you.
I'm going to ask a favor of anyone who's watching, listening, whatever. If you reach out to me because you saw this video, please mention that. I think that Mason and I would both like to know that this video was the reason why you reached out.
Yes, thank you. And if you guys like this video, like and subscribe. That would be great. Okay, Jack, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the SCV Law and Life Podcast. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. I'm Mason Rashtian, and I'll see you next time for more conversations on law, life, and what really moves the needle.